The circle ones that I have are like blackout shades, dude. They're like so dark. Which some days I like that shit. But sitting back here just chilling on a somewhat sunny day, I need these sunglasses. Ahoy. Ahoy hoy. Isn't that weird that like the first thing to say on the telephone wasn't like hello? It was like ahoy hoy. Like we needed a special greeting for the telephone that was different from how we would say hello to somebody on the street or whatever. Like why? This goes to show you how the human mind thinks about like technology. Like to me that's like an example of humans thinking that a piece of technology is going to fundamentally change humanity or change the way that we talk or whatever. Just overthinking the telephone. You know, like such a giant invention, being able to hear somebody's voice across the vastness of distance must have like inspired in people a lot of really nonlinear thinking about the future. And they were just like, man, that's going to create this whole subculture of phone talk and ahoy hoy. And we need to say ahoy. We need to say ahoy hoy instead of hello. Because we're having a phone conversation. Dude, I was watching this like 1950s Walter Cronkite broadcast where he's talking about the home of the future. And it's fucking crazy how they knew what was coming. Like they didn't really understand how it was gonna fucking like look. But he's like, in the home of the future, newspapers are obsolete. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and 7 days a week. The news is piped directly into your home information console. A quick search will reveal whatever news topic you want. And then he goes on, and like it's like that would have been enough, but then he goes on and then he's like, no more impersonality on the telephone. If you want to see the person you're talking to, you just touch the viewing console, and there they are. It's just like, oh my God, they knew. It's like back in the fucking 50s, they knew. What's up with all the boomer stuff, man? What are you talking about, bro? Cosmic Spider, don't walk that fucking line with me. It was like that. I mean, this was not, they really hadn't caught on to the portability of it yet. They were talking about like, you know, each home having like a station that was dedicated to news and information and phone calls and all of that. But like what he's actually describing in that news reel like has absolutely come to pass and then some, right? A computer, yeah, basically. Like a home computer hooked to the internet that's constantly giving you updates about the news, and then you also can use that same console to phone call somebody, and if you want to see them, you touch a button and there they are. And they can see you. Yeah, they just couldn't see all of that stuff because if you look at that news report, all of that stuff has its own separate spot in this big desk. You know, they were theorizing was going to be the media center and information center of every house. You know what I mean? And they were very focused on this new technology being introduced into house, and the only thing they really didn't foresee is, like Cynic said, the miniaturization of that technology, down to what we have now, which is all of that being carried around in your pocket, right? Fucking insane. It really is insane to me to think about how far technology has come in just 50 fucking 60 years. I mean, a lot of the things in the Jetsons came true. The Jetsons had those phone calls where somebody would call on the console and you'd push a button and there they were. You know what I mean? So, like, the Jetsons, fucking, like, all of these little futurist shows got something right. I mean, Star Trek, kind of like, Star Trek was actually the series that did get the miniaturization of technology. Like, they understood that these computers and stuff would eventually be pocket sized. You had tricorders and you had the badge thing that you hit to just speak to anybody that you wanted. They had an iPad, like the first iPad was on Star Trek. They had those tablets that they'd carry around and boop, 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 portable, right? Had the communications devices and, like I said, the tricorders to flip open and all their little tools, and that automatically linked back to the ship's computer and it, right? All of that shit, dude. None of them think of the smartphone, though. Cell phone, yes. Smart TV, yes. I mean, I think it's arguable that Star Trek got the smartphone. Like, I think it's arguable that Star Trek got the smartphone. You remember Star Trek, they were carrying around fucking tablets. You thought of tablets back in the day when you were as a wee lad, you probably saw it. You probably saw somebody carrying a tablet around on Star Trek. On Star Trek, they literally had these fucking tablets that they would like control shit with it. Flip phones, portable kind of devices, all these things were like presaged by science fiction. Not exactly, you know, they don't look or function in those shows exactly how they look and function now, but the functionality was presaged for sure. And so the question becomes, what are science fiction people saying now, right? So if we look at that time in our history and we see that science fiction made a lot of vague but ultimately correct predictions about the, you know, kind of like trajectory of technology. So what is science fiction saying now in our current culture? Because this may be a good way to look at what's coming. And what I see in our current culture when it comes to sci-fi and technological advances is this kind of adoption of an AI existing, right? So you see this starting to become hugely influential in sci-fi communities. You got Blade Runner 2037, which is hugely based around the idea of AI. You've got the movie AI. You've got the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix. You've got all of these movies that are presaging free-floating holographic displays and interactable AI. So if we like that, to me, now if I'm missing anything technologically speaking, then go ahead and jump in. But these seem to be the things that our science fiction community is presaging are coming to exist. Haptic feedback technology, where, you know, you've seen that Minority Report display where you, with the aid of a couple of implements and a alternate reality visor, can manipulate information using hand gestures, blow things out, move it along. See, these are not actual holograms existing. In that movie, it's shown that you have to have a special set of glasses and a glove in order to interact with this. Bring everything together. We see tons of that in the films. So I'm thinking that the next step is going to be this visual interface, this augmented reality interface that allows us to do most of our phone browsing without actually having to have the phone. We could leave our phone in the other room, take our glasses into the room, we get a little bored, we just hit it, our little fucking window comes up, we pull it over into our view, like, start manipulating it, hit play, pause, get rid of it, fucking search. Just put your hands in the position and it brings up a little haptic fucking keyboard for you to type on. Just imagine. I know they already do that in VR. It's just not something that you can take with you yet. That's what I'm saying, is like this technology is going to move away from this bulky VR headset shit, and it's going to move towards this maybe even imperceptible, like eventually maybe even just implants over your eyes, like a lens placed over your eye that allows you to do this shit without even having a device. I don't know, what other kind of technology do you see hammered away at in modern sci-fi? Giant holograms, interactive AIs, right? AIs that you could talk to, that talk back to you, that have a human-like interaction with you in instant, like an interface almost. Like instead of you going like Googling something, you'd say, hey, like, what's up with this? Humanizing, you know what I mean? The act of information seeking. Thanks, Tucker, for the two buckers. Thanks, Tucker, for the 2 buckers. Telepathy with anybody on the planet, right? Imagine the next step of this being that it's integrated. Like, we've seen this happen before. What was it in Blade Runner? It was that palm thing, right?
Yeah.
It was in his hand. Or was that Blade Runner, or was that another movie that I'm
Or was
thinking
that
of?
Total Recall? That was Total Recall.
That was Total Recall. That was the Total, or was it Blade Runner? No, it was Total Recall. The Total Recall remake, where the guy has a kind of like wetware implant in his hand, so there's no cell phone anymore, and all you have to do is put your hand on a glass surface, and that becomes your screen. Right? You take a phone call, it buzzes on your hand, and you're just like, hey, all right, fair enough. You know what I mean? Put your hand on the glass. I'm sending you the fucking details. Right? This kind of like body integration shit. You start to see we've seen a lot of that. Like, it's not, if you look at 50s sci-fi, it was about like people having technology, right? It was like they had a ray gun, they had a space gun, they had a this, they had a that. Right? They pick up this implement of technology. And if you look at sci-fi now, it's almost like we're becoming one with the technology. Transhumanism is starting to creep in because it's starting to become possible. The idea of wetware is starting to get closer to reality, which is interesting. Right. I mean, Kubrick presaged the idea of false gravity as a function of a big rotating circular, right? Like an entire space station that's built without gravity in mind, that's built on a circular track that's spinning and providing counter centrifugal force that is balanced so that it feels like gravity, or at least emulates gravity. gravity generators. That's just sci-fi hooey fooey. Paul, if you could make a digital version of yourself conscious, would you say that the digital version is really you? I mean, it depends on the abilities of the copy that's made and how thorough it is, right? Just ban that idiot, please. Don't worry about timing him out. Less timeout, more immediate bans. Like when the no PFP comes with fucking obvious troll intentions, just get rid of it. Just nuke it from the start. Something I've been watching the development of that's real Spider-Man web shooters. Yeah. The idea of being able to have a less than lethal weapon that's at your, you know what I mean, at your disposal that could be used to stop a fleeing person or to keep a person from violently approaching you because it wraps them up into something that it takes them a while to get out of. That sort of thing. You know, one of the things that's always interested me is the kinetic foam system from Demolition Man. The kind of how they presaged that airbags would eventually be replaced with a system that immediately fills the car with this foam shit that absorbs the kinetic impact, hardens as it like comes out, so it's just like you're slowly but surely just like stopped by the foam. So yeah, in Demolition Man, that's one of the pieces of technology that's a central, like, you know, stunt gag a couple of times in the film. And I've always thought, like, it's probably correct, right? A hermetically sealed environment inside of your car that when a crash is detected, like, you know, computers can see this shit happening. My car will break before I get in a crash. Like, my car can already like sense that I'm coming up on something that isn't moving fast enough or that is static enough, and it will engage the brake. So if it can sense the oncoming crash, theoretically a computer could sense like we're not going to be able to stop this and know when to deploy such a system to save everybody in the fucking car. Don't know enough about materials, but maybe it can be made to have oxygen diffuse, though. The idea of it is that once it was completely dry and hardened and the crash was over, that it required absolute minimal effort to just tear yourself out of it. It became like brittle as it was dry. So that was part of the design of the stuff, is like once it was completely dry, thus the crash is over, right? The people inside the car have been, and the foam was fire retardant as well. So it put out any fire that was in the car or any fire threatening the car. And then once it's completely dry, it becomes brittle enough that very little effort allows you to just kind of break it up around you, break other people out of it, take your children out of it, etc. It dried in a porous fashion so that people were able to breathe. Like it didn't like fill their mouths and throats with this foam shit. Like that's something that, you know, you'd have to think about with this foam thing. If you're like instantly flooding the cabin of something that's sealed with foam, people scream right before an accident. So what if somebody opens their mouth? That's a void, right? How does the foam know not to go down that person's esophagus and harden up and kill them, right? So you'd have to wait until it dried to get out. If you go watch the movie, in the movie, the theoretical foam that we're talking about dried almost instantly. It happened quickly. It was released into the car, absorbed the kinetic impact by being foamy and dense, and then just stopped you there, dried up, became porous, and you had to break out. dissolve on contact with saliva. Yeah, but we're talking about something that would, like, I don't know. You definitely have to deal with the idea of this shit getting up people's nose and then down their throats and shit. Somehow. We're talking about the movie. This does not exist. It's just an interesting thing that, like, I think about more now than I did when I was a kid, because going back and watching The Running Man, basically calls deepfakes, like outright calls deepfakes. There's a scene where, like, they want to make this fucking propaganda video, like Arnold Schwarzenegger's character Quaid, or whatever he is. He's not Quaid in that one. He's whatever. Can't remember his name. That he has died, and so they film a fake fight scene with two actors, where one of them looks like he kills the other one outright, and then they literally show it happening. They take a bunch of angles of Arnold's face that they have from the different cameras, and they like put it on the dude that dies. And then you play back the tape, and now it's Arnold that's in there being thrown around and killed at the end. I was watching that shit with Amelia when she first moved down, because she'd never seen it. We were going through all these movies she'd never seen. And I was like, whoa, I don't even remember that. That's like a little piece of technology that was in the movie that I was like, oh, cool, whatever. And then it just moves on. But, like, looking at it through the eyes of modernity, it's like that happened. That exists now. I love that movie because it not only invents, or very, very well, like, puts into the zeitgeist the idea of deepfakes, but it also immediately skips to the nefarious uses of deepfakes. It doesn't go like, oh, look, Charlie Chaplin's back. Oh, look at this. No, it's like, we use this to tell lies to people, to make it look like people are saying things they never said or doing things they never did. It skips immediately to the negative.
Yeah, no, Running Man was cool.
Yeah. Had a lot in it that moment was like, whoa, for me. It gave me tingles. I remember when I was watching it, because I'd just forgotten that it was there. It's such a small little part of the movie that I'd just forgotten it as a plot point, and how fucking eerie and correct it was. There's a Star Trek TNG episode where Ferengi uses deepfake Picard voice to try and frame him, yeah. Very honest and telling of human nature, I agree. Oh. Dynamo. Like, his electrical powers were driven by his opera voice. Pretty cool. What Star Trek would you recommend me to watch? I hate the one with Shatner, but love the context. I'd say Next Generation is probably, like, even outside of that, if you just asked me that and said you didn't give me the qualifier that you're not a fan of Shatner or the Shatner original series, I would have said TNG. To me, TNG is the most accessible way to get into Star Trek. It's great. It stands up. It stands the test of time. There are some bad episodes. There are some episodes that are kind of lame in comparison to others, but every season has got a ton of classic episodes in it. There's a lot of the type of shit we're talking about here. A lot of these little tidbits of technology that if you look at them, you realize this exists now. You know what I mean? Not necessarily maybe as high tech as this, but this is new. Like the whole idea of a replicator, right? Like in Star Trek TNG, there is a huge use of this on ship device that everybody has in their room called a replicator that can basically make anything you want. It's usually used for food. But this is happening with material goods. It's sometimes used for material goods. Sometimes the replicator is used to make this, that, or the other thing, some material hat or implement that they need, right? This is already happening. On a very slow and small scale, we have the ability to set a machine off and have it build biological material, knit flesh, have it create a gun, print whatever we want. It wasn't a proto 3D printer. It was an absolutely fundamentally technologically advanced 3D printer, like a Subnautica fabricator, right? This idea that the replicator takes basic building blocks. Everything is at the core of it carbon, right? Carbon based. And so it takes the basic building blocks needed to make anything and draws on them to make whatever it is you want. A cup of hot tea, machine gun, fedora. "3D printer plus transporter plus replicator," right? It uses energy, not carbon. Yeah, see, I don't remember what the conceit was, but sure. It theorizes the ability to use energy to create matter. Can you make world peace with it? Well, that's the whole idea of Star Trek. Star Trek exists at a time when human beings have, at the end of a horrifying war, the Gene Wars, have come together as a global species, have abolished the idea of nationhood, and have banded together to end suffering and poverty on the planet. They no longer use a capitalistic system of barter and trade because there's no need to. The technology exists that anything that anybody needs can be replicated for them. And humanity's entire focus in the Star Trek universe is the outward exploration of the universe. That's where all of the material stuff that we do as a species is ultimately funneled. That's our greatest dream and project as a species within the Star Trek bubble. It's not even a global communist society. It's a global resource-based economy. What's up with the non sequiturs in chat? Like that one episode where they revive frozen 21st century dudes who think they're rich just to learn capitalism is long gone. Yeah, that is actually a really good one. They end up coming across this like lifeboat from the like mid 20th or 21st century, where during the Gene Wars a bunch of rich people escaped and cryo freeze or whatever, and somehow their lifeboat ends up like zipped across the fucking universe, and they bump into it and defrost these people, and these people are just straight out capitalists, and they start ordering people around and start fucking, I'll buy this and I can buy this whole ship and blah 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 blah, you will take me here. And then slowly but surely, like, they have to explain to them, like, your money is worthless, your company is defunct, there's no such thing as a private company anymore. You may have been rich when you froze yourself, but you're just like everybody else now. There's still capitalism outside the Federation. Well, yeah, that's the idea is that we're going into, like, so the great thing about Star Trek is that it's basically a Western. A lot of people don't realize this, but it has the absolute same fundamental story ideas that a lot of Westerns do. It's like exploratory trips into different cultures, having to, do as the Romans do when in Rome, having to deal with people with different beliefs and different societies, different religions. Wagon train to the stars is how Roddenberry originally pitched it, right? So a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people don't know that Star Trek, being this super far future thing, is basically a Western. It's about the frontier. It's just a new frontier, right? The final frontier. Well, oftentimes Westerns are just samurai films, right? Well, not all of them, but we're talking about like Sergio Leone Westerns and stuff, heavily influenced by the cinema of Japan, specifically Akira Kurosawa, and started basically telling those stories. In Star Trek, the only release from boredom is war, the only amusement killing. Totally unfucking true. Completely and utterly untrue. There are whole fucking like seasons where Star Trek does not include fucking battles and killing. And nobody on the ship is going stir crazy because there are facilities where they can fucking be wherever they want to be. They have a holodeck. Like there's no, you know what I mean? This just isn't true. I mean, that's what we're talking about here, Raz. If you haven't seen Star Trek, I recommend that you watch TNG. Start with season 1. Know that the show gets better. Season 1 is a little bit rocky, but I recommend that you start there because the show grows into its own towards the end of season 1, beginning of season 2. And really just watch that. There's tons of it. And if you like that, then consider going back and watching the original series. And if you like that, consider watching fucking Deep Space Nine. And if you like that, consider going further down the rabbit hole than I've gone. I've only seen a bit of Deep Space Nine. I've seen all of the original series. I've seen all of the Next Generation. And that's basically where I stopped. But there's, Star Trek Voyager. There's Star Trek Enterprise, which is like an earlier, goes back in time, I guess, to the time when, these kind of big spacefaring ships were rather new. The Star Trek, the only TV show with a bald protagonist? No, there was, what was his name? Kojak. Go look it up. Kojak was a completely bald, played by Telly Savalas, completely bald, kind of private detective. X-Men as well has Professor X, who's the ultimate main good guy, totally bald. Kojak, yeah, I know. I had to dig deep for that one. But that's immediately where it went. Then you had Yul Brynner in Westworld. Yul Brynner in The King and I. Bald as a cue ball. Time Star Trek came out, being bald was very stigmatized. Yeah, I mean, it always kind of has. I mean, read the Bible. Get thou down, Baldy. And God sends a she-bear to eat the kids who made fun of the bald man. Like, it always has been. But, it looks different on older dudes. Like if an older man goes bald and just kind of goes with the flow, it adds a sense of gravitas to him to have that kind of like side part of their hair. You know what I mean? But I really do think that Captain Picard helped to push that vision forward to kind of normalize male pattern baldness in a way that, maybe people didn't make fun of it as much. And maybe kind of empower dudes to stop wearing hair pieces and shit. But it also raises a question. It's like, without all of the advertising telling people how they should look, Star Trek, despite all of its fucking innovations, it's just not a place where you hear about people going to get like cosmetic surgery done, right? Like, think about it. If it developed along a capitalistic line, there would be people lining up to have their faces knit into different faces and completely changed. And you don't see any of that in Star Trek. You know, you would think that there would have been technology where fucking Picard could sit down and just have a full head of hair at the end of a really quick procedure or some shit, but he doesn't. You know, you would think that Data, as a non-biological organism that's learning to become sentient, would eventually get this idea in his head that, like, oh man, I want to look different than I was, designed to look. I don't want to look necessarily like the person who designed me. Like, I want to look like my own thing, or I want to be a woman or whatever. And he never struggles with that. We never really see that struggle with identity or that struggle with personal grooming or personal style or personal differences. And in fact, they're magnified in comparison to the modern day, because people are walking around the ship with literal alien races. We're talking about, Ferengis with big bat ears and fangs, and fucking, Klingons with the giant fucking foreheads and the sharp teeth and So it's almost like, when this whole capitalistic drive kicked in or died, breathed its last breath, and was supplanted by this resource-based economy that we see, it's almost like people's pressure to look a certain way, seemingly within the universe of Star Trek, evaporates. There's no pressure to conform yourself to any standard of beauty, because there's no makeup company shoving pictures of impossibly hot women in your face as a little girl your whole life. And so it's portrayed that women in the future, they still take part in traditionally feminine dress and traditionally feminine activities. They do their hair, they wear makeup, but there doesn't seem to be this impetus for one woman to look alike to another, or for one woman to have that. It's just never addressed. Like, the standard of beauty, the standard of how one looks and how one keeps one's fucking self is really up to that person. And, you really don't see this struggle with, like, I hate the way I look, I hate the way I am. And I would imagine that has something to do with the fact that the unattainable ideal isn't crammed in your face in a non-capitalistic society. Right. They have this ability to, like, holographically change their appearance and shit. I suppose the idea is we have overcome such inferiorities. It is sci-fi after all, right? Not necessarily overcome them, but just adapted them into society. Like, there's no angst about trans people in the future. It's just presumed that trans people transition in the future, and they're not treated any differently. And then maybe in the future, there's absolutely no fucking way for you to tell. Passing is no longer a thing. If you're a trans woman or a trans man, you just transition. There's no angst about it. There's no religious pressure for you to not do it. It's just available to you, and you do it, and there's no questions, there's no comments, there's no concerns. You are just integrated into society, expressing whatever gender identity that you want. It's not a frontier for social justice. It's not a battle zone. It's not identitarian politics and poll shit. It's literally just nothing, as it should be. Yeah, cynic. If I were you, you remember earlier when you said I'm gonna bounce out because I'm getting weird. You should have taken your own, because I want to see you get fucking nuked. But you are acting like a dumbass up in here right now. You're acting like a fucking 12-year-old, and I think maybe you need to read Othello's little special message to you that I'm sure he can throw up for you a couple of times in the chat. Yeah? I give you a lot of leniency, cynic, but this is an 18 fucking plus place. Read the rules. They're a coming. And abide by them. Don't act like a child in here. If you're gonna troll, it better be fucking funny. It better have a point. It's been really weird and kind of hard remaining, like, kind of biting my tongue recently with this Israel-Palestine shit. Because I see a lot of people who voted for fucking Joe wrestling now with the moral repercussions of their choice.
Like the new budget he proposed has like I think $1 billion more for Israel
Yep.
climate. So
Yep. I mean, I tweeted that. I tweeted about that. I showed that graph today. And so a lot of the people that said that we had to get him out because he was like, we had to get this Trump guy out. We had to vote for this Biden guy because Trump is just so dangerous. Are now having to wrestle with the hypocrisy of that position in a very public way. Because they can't point at Trump and blame him for what's going on in IP right now. This is happening on Biden's watch. Biden's statements on this have been completely and utterly inappropriate for a world leader. He has basically just whitewashed the atrocities going on in the Gaza Strip right now. And all of these people that elected him are having to be faced with the cognitive dissonance of doing something for harm reduction and then seeing little babies being carried out of the rubble with their arms missing. You know what I mean? They're having to, like, harm reduction. It's like that meme with the woman with all the numbers. You know what I mean?
Like people about the China shit too. It's like we gotta protect the Uyghurs, but let's not do anything about Israel.
Right. That's what I'm talking about, man. It's like the moral calculus that's going on right now is really disconcerting to watch. Harm reduction because Trump would have been worse in Gaza. Maybe he didn't, but harm reduced.
Right. He moved the embassy in Israel, but I mean that didn't fucking like
that did nothing.
Immediately cause an escalation of tensions or nothing.
No.
It's just fucking.
It was just a virtue signal.
Yeah.
What's going on in Israel has nothing to do with the current U.S. president. Yes, but the reaction of the United States to what's going on in Israel has everything to do with the current U.S. president.
Like he's proposing more money.
He wants to give more money so that they can bomb more people on the Gaza Strip. Border crisis, not a crisis, kids not in cages. Exactly. And Seneca, you know that you and I don't agree politically on a whole lot of fucking things, but we're fucking aligned on that shit. Look how the fucking narrative changed immediately when Biden got in. Immediately. The border crisis became a carceral crisis. the border concentration camps became temporary housing facilities. The bars came down, the weird zombie tents went up. Nothing changed other than the attitudes of all these people who pretended to care about this shit.
It's like they criticized Trump for saying that the separation was to protect kids, but now they're saying this is to protect kids.
Right. Exactly. They use the same fucking rhetoric. Talking out both sides of their fucking mouth, and nobody's calling them on it because lesser of two evils. Harm reduction somehow. That fucking idiot earlier, oh my God, the current US president has nothing to do with what's going on in Israel and Palestine. Are you a fucking joker? What country do you think supplied the munitions and the weapons that are being used against people in the Gaza Strip? Who supplied the fucking warplanes?
Who's got a fucking base there where they're just like, doodly doo?
Who made them a nuclear nation? Give me a fucking break. Oh my God. So how many generations of people have been bullied by this? Like, if you criticize Israel, you're anti-Semitic. Like, people will, like, there are fucking Zionist type folks who will take what I'm saying and go, so you're saying Israel doesn't have a right to exist? They'll put that word in your mouth, label you an anti-Semite, and then just la their way through fucking Palestinian babies being carried flopping out of the rubble. Fuck that. Think I give a motherfuck about a country that's doing that? I don't. I'm not going to pretend I do.
It's like there's ways to be nuanced about it and still criticize Israel.
Absolutely. I didn't say Israel doesn't have a right to exist. You said that shit.
Like, is Hamas bad? Yes. Is Israel also bad? Yes.
Yes. See, here's what the narrative in America seems to be like, unless you want to be called an anti-Semite. Hamas is a horrifying terrorist organization that just won't leave the Israeli people alone. And so Israel is doing what it has to do to protect its people. That's the media narrative. The truth of the matter is that Hamas exists and is as extreme as it is because the IDF continually bulldozes Palestinian homes to the ground, sometimes with people's whole fucking lives still in them, to make room for rich Israeli settlers, and then they wall off what used to be a fucking Palestinian neighborhood.
It's like they make literally every adult in Israel, like, sign up to be in the military.
Yep. Checkpoints, rock throwings being met with live ammunition. This state is oppressive to its neighbor, beyond oppressive. So what do you think Hamas was born out of? Just some innate Jew hate? No. The reason Hamas is so fucking extreme is because they've been fucking bulldozed to the ground and shot in the streets for generations. And people keep making excuses for it. Don't get it fucking twisted. Call me a fucking anti-Semite because I stand for people not being rolled over in the streets.
They're like, people making an excuse, like, they're hiding the weapons among civilians, so we just have to kill the civilians because the weapons are there.
Right. It's ridiculous. And it's supported by this cyclical fucking lesser of two evilism, by the way. Large portion of Israelis descended from Holocaust survivors that were given an ethno-state in Palestine. What do you think their ancestors would say? What do I fucking care? Their ancestors are dead. I have to live in the here and now, where their state is perpetrating massive atrocities in the Gaza Strip and then using defense as a pretext to commit more. It's like poking a bear, and then when it goes, throwing a grenade at it and going, look, he was attacking me. It's fucking ludicrous that, like, actual adults take that position. But it's true. People on the left, people on the right, there are people that are just so enamored with the experiment that is Israel that they won't talk about what Israel does. There's bullshit religious fucking justifications for it. A lot of people are wrapped up, well, Israel must be correct because that's where Jesus is coming back. And in order for Jesus to come back to Jerusalem, it has to be under control of Israel. There's literally people in this country that watch the floppy, armless bodies of Palestinian children being carried out of the rubble of what was once their apartment home and go like, well, that is okay because Jesus has got to come back. This is, you understand the absurdity of what we're talking about here?
You're not saying fucking a single fucking word defending Hamas.
No. I will not defend Hamas. I will not defend the IDF. I will not defend anybody who's out there killing other people over land.
Explaining the origins of Hamas isn't defending them.
No. Telling you what created Hamas and what radicalized Hamas in the Palestinian fucking controlled areas of the Gaza Strip is not me taking their side. Dumb fuck. You've been so poisoned by this narrative that anything that anybody says that even implies that fucking Israel has a role in this fucking violence has to be shouted down. Oh, so you're defending Hamas? Well, fuck you. Put words in your own mouth, bitch. You got nothing to say. So you come in here and make me say something. Fuck you. Fuck your fake narrative, fuck your fake excuses, and fuck your continuation of this shit. Also, those of you fucking screaming, what's your fucking solution to the problem then over there? Guess what, guys? There isn't one. This is the fruits of imperialism. What you're witnessing in the Gaza Strip is the result of fucking 100 years of interventionalism by the United States and its allies in the affairs of the fucking world. You can't pull your dick out of the beehive without getting stung a bunch of times. There is no solution to it. There's no two-state solution. These people hate one another. They have fundamentally opposed religious ideology. They believe two different things about one holy piece of land, and there's no reconciling it. Israel is already materially supported. Even if we cut off funding to Israel, they're still widely armed and widely positioned. Every ship has sailed. We're dealing in the here and now. And in the here and now, there is no magical two-state solution to this. There's no political tap dance that anybody can do to fix this fucking problem. This is an unfixable sectarian problem. This is a fucking literal apartheid that's been created that has to exist in order to justify its own existence. There is no reason, there is no nuance, because so much of it is based in stupid religious fantasy about you ethnically have some kind of holy right to live on this strip of fucking land, and you can't fight with fantasy. You can sit and talk sense to a religious person all day, and trust me, I've tried. Go back and look at my early fucking videos on this channel. They are dedicated to trying to talk common sense to religious folk. I never deconverted one, as far as I know.
Or if you did, it was someone that was already well down the path of doubt.
Right. So don't come to me asking for solutions for you and your ilk sticking your dick in the fucking beehive yet again. I don't have nothing to do with propping up the state of Israel or making excuses for its atrocities. That's you. That's your position. You come up with the motherfucking plan. You tell me what the goddamn solution is. You're the one that's backing a horse in this fucking bloody bullshit.
I mean, you didn't talk about that, like maybe NATO just occupying it.
Oh yeah, we know how those go, like how that works. Occupied people love that. That's just a, long-term stability plan. Fuck that. There's no long-term solution to this. See, but we can't just wipe our hands of it. This is to say that like they need to come up with their own solution. We were materially involved in placing Israel where it is. We were materially involved in supporting Israel against its enemies. A lot of the bombs and guns and rockets and warplanes that are being used against, quote, Hamas militants by firing at apartment buildings in the Gaza Strip came right out of American fucking factories. They were sold to the Israelis by America. We cannot just go like, oh, just let them figure it out, bro.
Or just straight up given.
Nope. We don't get to extricate ourselves morally or politically from this situation. We backed a horse. Now we're riding it. This situation that we're talking about is what imperialism gets your country involved in. Period. This is the fruit of imperialism. Once you fucking invade an area, you own it. You own everything about it. You own what it does to the people that surround it. You own the suffering of the people within it. You topple a regime, you own it. Yep, you break it, you bought it. You know the rules. Where's the harm reduction calculus on this shit? And I just gotta bite my fucking tongue because a lot of people out there are saying shit that I agree with, but they also voted for Joe Biden. They also participate in the perpetuation of the DNC, which participates in the perpetuation of the sectarian violence going on in the Gaza Strip. Nationalism is poison. It makes you look at trans rights in the United States and say that the United States is a positive force for trans rights, when we are fucking trans people everywhere in the global south. Trans, gay, lesbian, bisexual, male, female, agender, NBs. Everybody gets fucked equally. Trans rights are not pretending that trans rights exist and are being fucking forwarded because nationalistically you get back in the military. That's not trans rights. Trans rights is speaking up for the trans people who are oppressed in horrible totalitarian dictatorships that are directly materially propped up by your country. Go be trans in Saudi Arabia. I'm still doing a countdown until we get some Biden holding hands with bin Salman. What do you think that regime uses to oppress women and trans people and gay people and atheists? American greenbacks, American guns, American material support for their continued atrocity. So go fuck yourself with your trans rights. Trans rights are global or they don't exist. Nationalism is poison. It takes strong, passionate minds and turns them into mush. It takes strong, independent thinkers and turns them into supporters of apartheid, supporters of rape, supporters of ecological devastation. Trans rights for me, but not for thee. Trans rights at the expense of trans fucking holocausts elsewhere. Trans rights at the expense of the material support of the country those trans people live in, oppressing trans people all over the fucking globe and supporting regimes that brutally murder trans people. You know what happens if you're a trans person in fucking Saudi Arabia? And somebody catches wind? Fucked doesn't even begin to describe it. You are executed publicly, thrown off a roof. But hey, we got a politician or two to put fucking the trans flag and their pronouns in a bio, so yay us. Fuck you. At the expense of what? Did you see the anti-homeless rock they painted in their rainbow LGBT colors? Pink, peak neoliberalism. Oh, dude, the virtue signals are coming strong and fast these days. The credulous acceptance of political promises from people that fucking just months ago you said you didn't trust is just running rampant these days. Neoliberalism is nationalism, and nationalism is poison, poison, poison. You're preaching to the choir, cynic. What do you think? I mean, you're in here often enough to know that you're preaching to the fucking choir on that. A big part of my message is you ain't seen nothing yet. We're on the precipice of huge global upheaval, and I don't know which way it's going to blow, but I know it's coming. I can smell it in the fucking air. Bongo, 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 I don't want to leave the Congo. Oh, no, 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 no. A bingo, bango, bongo, I'm so happy in the jungle, I refuse to go. As for civilization, I'll stay right here. Bongo, 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 I don't want to leave the Congo. Oh, no, 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 no. A bingo, bango, bongo, I'm so happy in the jungle, I refuse to go. Oh, sorry, baby. Your voice is so sweet and quiet that I thought you were still sitting. I got my spear. No matter where they put him, I'll stay right here. Bunga, 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 I don't want to leave the jungle. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh man, this stuff smells great. Ooh, Virginia cream. Virginia cream for my pipe. Oh my goodness gracious. I've seen a man I once considered intelligent transform in a fool as an effect of neoliberalism. Oh. Whoa. Truly a harrowing tale. You think that one world government is possible? Abso-fucking-lutely yes. Probable? No. Possible? Fucking A. You know the ancient Greek observation of a republic, that the larger a republic becomes, the more susceptible it is to tyranny. Who said that I think that the world should unite under a republic? That's your fucking idea, not mine. Under a one world government, after a couple of generations, it would be utterly pointless to otherize other people. You would have literal travel of the globe. You could live wherever you wanted, experience whatever little regional subculture that you wanted. I know, Vaughn. You think I don't know? You think I don't feel it? I feel it too. What do you think I'm doing out here talking about this every fucking day? Why are we talking about troll shit that was banned like fucking 10 minutes ago? I really, really, really want dumb, non-additive fucking comments to be policed out of this fucking chat today. I'm sick of looking at my chat and just seeing dumbass fucking shit. If you can't stay on the topic, if you can't keep your focus on what we're talking about, if you don't have anything interesting to add, don't post in my motherfucking chat. Period. Point blank. The Eastern world, it is exploding. Bombs are bursting and bullets loading. You're old enough for war, but not for voting. Say you don't believe in war, well then what's that gun you're toting? And even the Jordan River's got bodies floating, and you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, that you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Song written 70 fucking years ago. I mean, not 70, but Jesus Christ, man. Wake up. That is a Barry Maguire song called Eve of Destruction. You can look it up. Text you a bowl of bud. No, I can't do that, bro. Sorry. Thing I fear about the collapse is the true zombie apocalypse. Panic, people losing their shit in mobs. I mean, you don't need zombies for that. In a lot of more modern zombie movies, the zombies are analogs for hungry, desperate people, mobs of people. Desperate people killing one another for the last scraps of resource. We can't get the fuck off gas, Marshall. I agree with you. You're not wrong, but the modern global economy is addicted to fossil fuels. It's the blood that pumps through the veins of the economy. The very thought of transitioning to something different is so disruptive to the status quo that it'll almost certainly never happen until it's too late. The very idea of transitioning to a safe, sustainable, and sane, human-centric way of life and governing in this country, and allocation of resources in this country. The very idea of transitioning away from the status quo is hateful to the people in power. The very idea of it is hateful to them. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. You can always trust the Americans to do the right thing after they've exhausted every other possible option. My favorite quote about America. Good old Winston Churchill. Yeah, don't worry, guys. We rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement. Don't worry, guys. This is fine. Crisis averted, y'all. Crisis averted. We got out of the Paris Climate Accords, or we got back in them, or whatever. Paris Climate Agreement isn't even a drop in the ocean of problems. It doesn't even move to address it. There's no teeth to it. These companies that have, or these countries, sorry, and national states that have been in this Paris Climate Accord have consistently failed to meet their stated goals. And there's no repercussion for it. Must extend my deepest thanks for the recommendation into the show Deadwood. Have this as a small gesture of my gratitude. Ian McShane is a great actor who really made that show. Totally agree. Thank you, my friend. Their stated goals are a joke. They're like less than a fucking 10th measure towards what we actually need to do to mitigate some of the damage that's already fucking in our future. So it's just a way for countries to virtue signal that they're doing something about the coming collapse in hopes that when it starts to really affect people, i.e. now, that the people don't turn the blame where it's fucking supposed to be. Well, look at us. We're in the Paris Climate Agreement. You know, we've done what we can as politicians. Don't be angry at us. Don't turn your vitriol towards us that raped the planet. We've entered the Paris Accords, you see. Like, don't you see what the Paris Climate Accords are? A retreat for people who plan to do nothing about the environment to say, look, I did something. CO2 is not only the highest in 3 million years, the parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere is at the highest rate of incline that it has been in the history of the planet. There are people that'll tell you, oh yeah, the planet has gone through these cycles of warming and cooling naturally, more CO2, less CO2, blah, 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 blah. Yes. But look at those trackable times in history versus what's going on now. Look at how long it took for the CO2 to build up in history, and look at how it's spiked in the last 200 years here. And how there's no sign of it stopping. Water wars coming to a fucking neoliberal excuse machine near you. Wars for the last remaining remnants of what this planet can give us of non-renewable resource. Wars over the last little bit, the last scraps, the last tiny little remainders. You know, there's already whole cities of people who live. I can't remember what country this is in. I think it's Ghana, an African country where people live in what is effectively an old electronics dump. If you look at where they live, it looks like the 90s took a shit, right? All these big old CRT monitors and old fucking HP Pavilion computer towers and all this bullshit that human beings have just thrown out, right? Like whatever the local area is buys lots of this shit and pays people to live in it, and they go through and their whole job is to strip copper and reusable like material resources out of all this plastic fucking detritus from the 90s. So little bits of gold in the transistors, little bits of all of these precious metals that are finite that are disappearing. There's a whole fucking towns of people whose whole existence is they live in a shack on the edge of this shit, and then all day they go out, they gather up crap from an endlessly growing pile of crap, take it back to like some fucking central area and pick through it. But this is an example of the scarcity that I'm talking about in action. We've reached the point now where we're like, oh, fuck. we've used up most of this shit. We've got to go back and like try and grab this shit we've already used and find the little bits of it, and maybe we'll use that. Landfill mining, exactly. Old cell phones. They're grabbing all this shit, old batteries. Oh yeah, that's already starting to happen. Like in rural areas like I live in, like in farming areas like I live in, like routinely farmers will have people come in the night and strip copper parts or steel parts off of their tractors, strip copper wiring out of any electrical system that they have in an outbuilding. When a house sits for too long, like on the market with nobody in it, and it's in a rural area, there's a high likelihood that it'll be broken into and just absolutely stripped of copper, because this mineral is so fucking becoming so scarce. Won't space asteroid mining, i.e. massive material resource abundance, make the issue of dumping way, way worse? We're not even getting to that point. I hate it when people bring up something like asteroid mining. Asteroid mining is science fantasy, okay? You have any idea how much fuel it takes to get such a tiny little bit of material into space, let alone the heavy type of machinery that it would take to fucking build an orbital mining plant, and all of the craft that would have to be involved in that. All that shit has to be moved to space, and then the load ores that are taken from those fucking things have to be brought back to Earth. This is absolutely science fantasy at this point. Colonizing the moon is a fucking fantasy. The moon has no atmosphere. Look, you realize why the moon is so pockmarked? Because it's constantly getting hit by shit that burns up in our, what's the word? Atmosphere. So anything you build on the lunar surface might be pelted by a fucking rocket from space at any second. People don't even think this shit out. The problems that we face are here now. We are locked to this planet. We cannot escape it as a species. We're not aligned to escape it as a species. We don't have time to escape it as a species. We don't have 200 years to develop new fucking jet propulsion technology and shit. Some new engine. We don't have it. The environment is collapsing now. In between 30 and 50 years, the equatorial belt, home to 40% of the population of Earth, is going to be functionally uninhabitable for people. We are talking about a mass climate refugee crisis, the likes of which the world has never seen. It's going to happen from without in every country. It's going to happen from within in every country that has a coast. Space elevators are science fucking fantasy. There's so much space junk orbiting the Earth that we would have to clean that up before a space elevator would ever be fucking feasible. A space elevator that gets hit by a piece of space junk and re-enters the fucking atmosphere could destroy part of a fucking city. that's 300 miles away from where it is. You don't understand, dude. Oh, dude, it would be hugely catastrophic. One of those things fell, and the cable that is used to tie the orbital platform to Earth whips down through the atmosphere and lands on a city. People don't fucking get it. We need more than functioning space elevators. That's like putting the cart before the horse. If you want to mine asteroids, here's what you need. A new propulsion system. Because once again, we're talking about how petroleum-based fucking shit like jet fuel is a finite resource. So you need a new propulsion system. You need a propulsion system that is so powerful that it can get massive amounts of material off of this planet and escape the gravity of Earth. You've got to build a manufactory in space with all of that material that'll then manufacture and be supplied with constant resupply from Earth of dwindling materials, by the way, from Earth, because we haven't even started mining an asteroid yet. And then that floating manufactory in space has to be manned, and it has to start manufacturing mining vehicles that'll also be manned. Not just vehicles that go out and mine the ore, but huge processing vehicles that take that ore, crush it down, and package it so that it can be then loaded back at the manufactory onto a spaceship that goes back to Earth. Or taken from the manufactory to one of these mini space elevators that we've somehow figured out. You were talking about science fantasism. If you think that that's going to save us. Why must they be manned as opposed to automated machines piloted remotely? Okay, so now you're inventing a new technology, a completely autonomous space station that can work completely independent of human intervention. Something breaks on it, it fixes itself. More science fantasy. Where are you getting that technology? Because it doesn't exist yet. We don't even have that technology on the planet Earth, let alone a functional version of it in space. Whoops. You just tripped on your own argument and fell face first into a pile of your own horse shit. Congrats. You would need repair crews at the very least, yes. Hence why it has to be manned. You would need overseers. You would need people to repair the fucking machines when they broke down. You would need a manned space manufactory and ore processing plant in orbit before you could ever send a fucking vehicle out to mine any of the resources in the asteroid belt. Yeah, maybe the magic machine will develop resources out of thin air. Asbestos fingers. The magic machine. In 20 years, we'll have incredible AI capable of defining the parameters of its own problems. Okay, and what are we going to do with it? I have a feeling that that AI will be military tech and it will be used to prosecute future resource wars. Do you have any fucking reason to believe otherwise? Right. Let it think on what we tell it to think about, what we design it to think about, whatever task we give it. Do you think that the task that we give it is going to be anything other than prosecuting future war? Do you think that that technology will be used to create some kind of fucking moneyless society or some shit where we hand over the reins of humanity to an AI? Like, you honestly think that? Everybody's just kicking the can to the next generation. And those people are going to burn for what we've done. All this fantasy shit, all this fucking bullshit. It's all just a balm on the wounds of what you see going on. What's going on in Israel and Palestine right now, to bring it all fucking full circle, is an exact representation of this type of fucking global suffering. It's a microcosm of what's to come. Climate crisis, refugee crisis, indigent, poor, hungry people fleeing literal uninhabitable swaths of the country that they used to call home. No plan in place to deal with them. No plan in place to transition to a system that doesn't require capitalistic fucking exploitation of the underclass. No even over it from the left. We're all excited because we got Biden. This is the nightmare that we're living in as leftists. And there are so very few of us that are saying, wake up the fuck up. This isn't working. We don't have time. Even if your incrementalism had any merit to it, we don't have time. Leftists need to start now divesting themselves from this power structure and immediately reinvesting themselves locally to start preparing for this fucking collapse in the best way that we can. So that whatever's left after this has fucking leftist weight behind it and not the fucking very, fucking tyranny and fascism that we all purport to be voting against. We need to start doing the hard work of that, and that means building mutual aid organizations. That means building local community fucking outreach organizations or supporting them. That means taking your money and your fucking time and your influence out of this political process that's nothing but a meat grinder for the fucking global south and starting to fucking invest in your future. And your future is local. Make no bones about it. Where you fucking end up is going to matter way more than it matters now in about 20 years. There are going to be such an insane influx of people, not just from other fucking countries, people within this country moving inland, fleeing these fucking hurricanes, fleeing this swampy fucking weather that I'm talking about that's going to make the equator uninhabitable. What do you think all those Floridians are going to do as the Keys and the southern tip of Florida become really fucking uninhabitable? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to move in, which is going to radically change the demographics of where you live and radically limit your options to move anywhere else. We're talking about a shrinking fucking housing market at a time when there are going to be millions of people streaming into this country and streaming away from ecological collapse. This is in the next 10 years. You're going to start seeing this. You're already seeing the front edge of it now. The migrant crisis at the border, that's what this is. What do you think these people are fleeing? You think they just decided to pull up stakes and come to America because, that's the thing to do? They're fleeing economic devastation that's driven by ecological devastation. They're fleeing unfettered capitalism. They're fleeing violence, supported tacitly by the United States. We all know about CIA and the CIA running guns to fucking terrorist drug lords and shit in Mexico, right? This is all common knowledge to you guys, right? This isn't even a fucking conspiracy theory. They were caught red-handed doing this, sending American weapons over the Mexican border, arming the cartels. What do you think the end result of all this is, folks? Because as far as I can tell, I'm one of the only leftists out there talking about this, at least on this platform. So let me ask you as leftists, what's the fucking game plan? Because if you agree that all the stuff that I'm saying is true, sounds like bullcrap, but I'm dumb. What do I know? I have countless friends in Florida living it up. Oh, dude, they are the last fucking generation of people that'll be living it up in Florida. Florida already has a migrant crisis, as you know. If you know anything about fucking Florida, you say you got a bunch of fucking friends there, so I'm sure you know that Florida is a constant migrant influx crisis, right? From South America, from the Caribbean, from Central America. Florida's a landing point for tons and tons and tons of refugees. What do you think they're running from? What do you think the end result of that is, though, Cynic? Do you think that that flow getting bigger every year is somehow just like there's infinite land in Florida? Do you think that Florida is not close enough to these coastal areas that I'm talking about that are going to have increased hurricane activity that people are going to flee to be impacted by it? Like what do you mean they're living it up? Bienvenidos a Miami. Welcome to the place where the heat is on all night, all day till the break of dawn. I'm going to Miami. Bienvenidos a Miami. You don't hear the party fucking ending? You don't hear the record skipping here pretty soon? As the numbers of people seeking fucking refuge in Florida and all of these fucking southern United States increases and there's no plan to do anything with them? I don't even know if that's true, Ann Prim. But you need to understand, guys, let me tell you something let me tell you a little secret, okay? I'm gonna tell you a little secret. Come on. Get in close. It's a secret. The main reason that I left Louisiana was that I didn't feel safe living there anymore. Because every year that I lived there, there was more giant hurricanes that were aimed right at me. And this is a direct consequence of global warming. And I'm not the only person fleeing South Louisiana because of this, or Louisiana in general. No, I'm not a refugee because I didn't have to come to some other state indigent. I'm lucky because I've got a little bit of money. So I was able to go like, fuck this and get out while the getting was good. But the writing's on the wall for me. I got the fuck out of there because it's going to be underwater in about 15 years. Cali's got its own goddamn fucking problems. I may be fleeing this fucking place too soon enough. Wildfires abundant, water shortage, unprecedented drought. California's a fucking mess. There's nowhere that isn't. And you better be fucking scared as fuck about the desertification of California, because if you like vegetables and you live in the United States, chances are you eat vegetables that are grown here in California. If you like produce like milk or beef, there's a really good chance that you're eating California grown, California raised, California factory farmed beef. You better be scared as fuck about the desertification of California's Central Valley. You want to look at a canker sore that should make you fucking scared shitless? Look at how little water there is in the Central Valley of California. Go driving through the Central Valley and see the big fucking signs that say pray for rain. What do you think that's about? Cynic, shut up. Quit talking like Jesse Lee Peterson. It doesn't make you look like a smart guy. Quit memeing in the chat. I'm not going to warn you again, by the way, Cynic. Your continued participation in this chat is now hanging in the balance. Like, I like you, we're old friends and shit, but this meme lord shit that's coming out of your fucking mouth is going to end. You worried about the fault line in California? I mean, dude, there's things to worry about with everything, but I don't live near the fault line, so not really. Yeah, I live nowhere near a city, so I'm not real super concerned about the fault lines. I grew up in California, so earthquakes, I've been through a bunch. I actually have one of my really earliest memories is experiencing the, what was it, the 86, 87 quake in San Francisco, the big one. The big one that had the Golden Gate going like, had buildings collapsing and shit, killed a bunch of people. Can't remember what year it was that happened, but I remember being in my house, and it was I was up in the morning, and I remember being on the couch in my house, and then I remember feeling really dizzy. And then I remember looking up, and we had a ceiling fan, and we had higher ceilings in the house. So it was one of those ceiling fans that was on a longer pole, so it was closer to you, so it pushed more air on you, right? And that ceiling fan was literally going like this. And then that's when I noticed that other stuff in the room was moving. And I remember hearing my mom at that point go, ah! You know, that mom noise. Come running into the fucking room, and it was crazy. I remember she fell on top of me on the couch. You know what I mean? Just kind of like that motherly instinct. It really is. I was actually here visiting my parents. This was, had to be like fucking like 2019 for 4th of July. And we were all sitting in the living room. When I say we were all, I mean me, my mom, and my stepdad. I stayed with them for a week. I came back to visit, and I stayed in my old bedroom and everything. It was a little crazy. But anyway, we were all sitting on the couch, and I got that same feeling again. That weird, like, the room is spinning, kind of almost dizziness. And then I realized that we were being moved, and my mom made that same noise. Ah! She's sitting on the couch. It's an earthquake. I was like, yeah, it is. You we could hear the pool, my mom's pool in the backyard, just sloshing water and shit. It is a very, very unnatural feeling. I didn't know you lived in a quake zone there, Marshall, or did you experience one on a visit somewhere? I'm not up on my Marshall history. How do you prepare for earthquakes? We never have them here. What you're supposed to do is to try and either get into a doorway, which are actually some of the most reinforced parts of a house, or get into a bathtub. If you have a child, it's recommended that you take that child and put them in a bathtub and that you lay in the bathtub with them. You get to a central part of the house that doesn't have windows to the exterior. So you want a part of the house that isn't next to windows, because one of the main things that'll happen in a big enough quake is that windows, because the foundation is being warped a little bit, will blow out, right? Or blow out due to the vibration. So you want to be away from any glass that could fly and cut you. So your instinct during a bad earthquake, not just a temblor, which is what I was describing that I experienced in 2019 or 2018, whenever it was I visited my parents for 4th of July. So it was around July, there was some earthquake near Madera, California. Not near it, but, on the fault line, and that's what we felt. You go look up the news for it. Yeah, if it gets bad, your instinct is supposed to be to get to the interior of your home. Get away from windows, all of that shit. Dog starts barking way before you notice the shake, yeah. Dogs do tend to have a sensitivity to that shit before we become aware of it. It hits us like a dizzy spell. Like human beings, it takes a few seconds to realize that it's not you that's like, whoa, that it's like the world underneath you going. And you're like, okay, fuck, all right, whoa, 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 whoa. I really fear but love tornadoes. Yeah. I was in a quake in India once when I was a kid. It was weird. The hanging plants and pool water were spilling about. Yep. It is a strange sensation for sure. Oh, man. All right. Well, it's starting to get slightly uncomfortably warm out here, so I'm going to end this, say thank you, and see you next time.